Welcome back, my friends, to The Whim. I'm Jonathan Sorcy, narrator and author of Wandering the Whim. The Whim is a set of fantastical, floating worlds, brimming with strange and beautiful creatures, perilous places, and brave adventurers. As a reminder, if you want to read along or want to discover other unrecorded stories, you can head to wanderingthewhim.wordpress.com. But without further ado, the title of today's story is The Carapace. Brushing past a tree branch, Flake skidded to a sudden stop. His mouth gaped for a long moment before he regained his composure and called for his roommate, Cosimo, to hurry up. In the clearing, just ahead, stood the Carapace. It was big. No, tremendous. No, stupendous. No, flabcentriculous in size. Big enough that it took Flake's breath away, even though he had been staring at drawings and schematics of its inside and out for the past few weeks in the library. It was the size of a mountain, some said, though it really was more the size of a large castle, and in fact served a somewhat similar function. Still, the Carapace towered over both Flake and the trees, eliciting slow whistles from both him and some of the surrounding birds.
"Oh wow, we found it," said Cosimo, who had finally come trotting up. "Right on, dude. I thought we'd be searching for hours before we finally peeped it. Though, maybe we already have. Kinda hard to keep track of time out here without the school bell and all. You think we're the first ones here?"
Flake calculated for a moment. "I certainly hope so. But some of the others are not far behind us. We'd better move quick to find the door and get on with it." Finding the central chamber of the Carapace would not be easy, but bringing back the golden shell trophy which the faculty had placed there would give Flake the perfect grounds for taking Dr. Nobble's Advanced Dungeon Solving and Mathematics class a semester early. This was, of course, a crucial step in his primary 5-year plan. They just needed to keep moving so that none of the other student teams beat them to it.
"It's lucky we found it so early," said Cosimo.
"Well, it wasn't luck, really," said Flake. "I simply calculated the most probable summoning vector from Dr. Hansworth's study window, then multiplied by a dispersal trajectory, and compensated for Bosworth's constant to get us the right direction. Then what are you doing?" As Flake was speaking, Cosimo had unloaded from his backpack a large frying pan, a wrinkled ghost pepper, and a variety of other ingredients, including a rope of sausages and some carefully wrapped spickles.
"Well," said Cosimo, "since we're here so early, I figured I've got plenty of time to cook up a good lunch before we go in. Want to be fully topped off before we head in, and it's around that time anyways."
"You're kidding," said Flake. "Stopping for lunch? That'd completely throw away our head start. Besides, I thought you already had a big breakfast."
"Yes, but that was an hour ago at least," said Cosimo. "Relax, Flake. I can get us inside in a flash with my teleporter citrus. But I should really do that after lunch, otherwise everything I eat will taste like citrus peel for a week."
"The teleporter citrus won't work. There are spells on the Carapace to prevent you from teleporting into it. Inside, there are other enchantments to make them function in reverse. We'd teleport one of the monsters on top of our heads."
"That'd be funny," said Cosimo.
Cosimo kicked several nearby sticks into a pile, then bit down hard into the ghost pepper. His face flushed brightly and his eyes bulged for a second as he chewed. Then suddenly a large jet of flame erupted from his mouth. He aimed this at the sticks and singed them until they caught, finally spitting out the remnants of the ghost pepper. Cosimo mopped his brow.
"Phew! Probably should take a palate cleanser after that. But first, I'll go get some more wood to keep the fire nice and going. I can already hear the sausages singing my name."
Flake coughed in exasperation. This always happened. Cosimo seemed unable to maintain any sense of urgency in relation to anything except eating. Of course, keeping Cosimo amply fed meant his gastromancy would function best. Cosimo's magical abilities were why Flake had chosen him as a roommate, in fact. But Flake was determined to win this competition, and Cosimo was not going to slow him down. An idea squirmed in his brain as he glanced at Cosimo's backpack. He could make this work. By the time Cosimo returned, Flake stood proudly with a long skewer of sausages and spickles, all fully cooked and ready to eat. He had even found enough time to put out the fire so they could beat it as soon as Cosimo wolfed down the food. Flake was quite proud of himself. There was no puzzle he could not find an optimal solution for. Cosimo seemed less enthusiastic.
"Where'd the fire go?" he said.
"I put it out."
"Dude! I just said I was going to cook lunch."
"Oh, you don't really need to worry about that. I've already done it for you," Flake said triumphantly. Cosimo furrowed his brows and squinted at the skewered sausages, coming closer to investigate.
"No, no, no! Why'd you do it like that? They're all seared and blackened, and all the snippies are melted off the spickles. You gotta cook 'em low and slow in the frying pan. Let the fat and juices render out and party. Now they're drier than a crouton."
"Well, if we did it your way, we'd be stuck here for hours, wasting our time saving a couple globs of fat from evaporating. We've got to keep moving, Cosimo. You wanted lunch, so I obliged. Fully cooked sausages in only 2 minutes and 28 seconds. What more do you want?"
"A good lunch," said Cosimo. "But anyway, how did you cook them so fast?"
"That was easy. I just used the gruggets you had in your backpack to make the fire blaze up, and I—"
"Whoa."
Cosimo looked like he was about to explode.
"You used my gruggets? Just threw them in the fire? You monster! Do you have any idea how hard it was to find those? To keep them safe from hon-hons? I was saving them for something special. For a meal so good, I would have remembered it for years to come. But now they're gone, and life is horrible, and the world will die."
Flake rolled his eyes.
"Look, once we get back, I'll buy you new gruggets. Better ones. Whatever you want. Just please, let's keep moving. I really don't have time for this."
"Oh, you don't have time for this? Well, excuse me. If you're in such a rush, why don't you just go on in yourself? I'd like to see how you fare then, without my magic."
Now Flake scowled. He was always pulling weight for the two of them. "I'd do just fine. Better, actually, without you slowing me down."
"You wouldn't make it 10 feet past the first monster."
"Well, at least I'd get inside before the contest was already over."
"I'll get that trophy," said Cosimo. "You'll see, and I'll do it my way. None of your stupid maths and formulas and time-saving. You better make good use of your head start, because once I finish frying some new sausages, that golden shell will be mine."
Flake threw the sausage skewer angrily and stormed off. It did not take him long to reach the entrance of the Carapace, a gaping hole in the side of the enormous shell. Flake charged inside, running down the yawning entrance hallway. Several gooplings shambled toward him from the shadows, swiping at him as he passed, but he did not stop for them. Their maximum walking speed was less than his by at least 2 feet per second, meaning he could be far ahead of them in the same time it would take to defeat them. He did pause for a moment to fetch his lesser gauntlet of blammo from his backpack, though. It was not as powerful a weapon as Cosimo's gastromancy, but it suited Flake just fine. His mind was his true weapon, and it told him to choose the first left-hand branch he came to. The passageway grew darker, and soon he came to a door. Judging by its number, 46D, there was a 78.3% chance that behind it there would be a riddle room, the sort of thing that Flake solved in his sleep to prevent his mind wasting time while he rested. He burst through the door. Flake's smile suddenly faded. Where he had expected to see a gnarled old man riddle-guarding a flimsy bridge over boiling porridge, he instead saw something quite different. Trolls. Around a baker's dozen of swee trolls, one of the worst kind of troll that there is. They are 11% faster and 113% meaner than the common troll, although they taste delicious. And as soon as he opened the door, they all saw him. With whoops and whirls they lunged forward, hurling a volley of exploding sugar cubes at him. The door behind Flake had vanished, leaving only the trapdoor at the opposite end of the room as an exit. He managed to dodge most of the sugar, and even to deflect several cubes with his gauntlet. He dove for cover behind one of the large cinnamon boulders that dotted the dim chamber. The Swee trolls chortled in excitement, showering the boulder with more missiles and lumbering towards him. A blammo gauntlet was not the right sort of weapon to fight these monsters. He'd have to get up close to them. Flake's mind raced, calculating, square rooting, and doing other sorts of mathgic. Finally, a plan came to him. Using his gauntlet, he broke off a large chunk of cinnamon from the boulder behind him, then bashed it into powder. The trolls were almost on him, laughing and drooling frosting. Jumping out from his cover, he blew a large handful of the powdered cinnamon directly into the eyes and face of the nearest troll. It reacted immediately, flailing about, distracting its oven mates, and allowing Flake just enough time to dart between its legs. Powder-puffing another troll or two, he managed to get to the trap door before the beasts had recovered themselves. Slamming the hatch behind him, he heard the crackle of more sugar explosions. "That was a little close for comfort," Flake said out loud, sliding down the ladder under the hatch into an empty chamber. If the first room had been this difficult, it did not bode well for the later, more challenging rooms. Cosimo, of course, could simply have conjured a hunger pang or two and melted the food-based monsters into a tasty pudding. It was terribly bad luck that that room had turned out to have Swee trolls. Or rather, the odds were against it. Random chance was still on his side, however, and the next chamber would surely prove easier. Shortly he came to a door which was labeled 22B. This room, a large stone hall, at first seemed virtually empty. The floor was filled with holes and crevices and broken bits of stone and rubble. A single pedestal, the only thing of note, stood in the center of the room. It was the sort of thing that usually had an exit crystal, stalk of magic celery, or other method of progression floating above it. But here there was nothing. Odd. He hoped someone had not somehow made it there first and already taken it. Stepping forward, the smell suddenly hit him, like a mix of wet dog and morning breath, wafting slowly past his nose hairs. It was not an exit crystal or celery smell. It was almost certainly a monster smell, or else some especially bad meatballs. By now, standing at the center of the room, he knew that he was not alone. Flake could feel a set of eye beams tickling the back of his neck, and he almost did not want to turn to meet them. But he did. There, creeping towards him on cat-like paws, was the largest, roundest fweeb he had ever seen. Inching forward, it studied him eagerly with a lopsided pair of eyeballs. The terrible smell came from its shaggy, wet hide and its luscious pink lips. Quickly running through classifications and cyclopedian articles in his mind, Flake determined that he was very badly matched to defeat the monster in a fight, and, more importantly, that there was no apparent exit from the chamber. He noticed a faint glow from the monster's midsection, and decided to stall for time. "Judging by your size, shape, and smell," he said, "you must be a stage 6 imperious fweeb, probably from Imlem Domdoth, if I had to guess, which means that the glow from your belly must be from an enchanted exit gem. So that's how I'm supposed to escape this room. I'll bet you feel very clever for swallowing the only way out."
"That's right. Warp," said the fweeb, flatulously. "Clever and hungry. And you're the snack."
The spheroidical beast's frown slowly curled upwards, and its pupils enlarged. Not a good sign. It was best not to talk to fweebs, as it only encouraged them in their fweebishness, but Flake needed to think out loud. "Let me think. Your chief weakness is spaghetti, which you're deathly afraid of and allergic to. You also dislike heights and people named Clarence. You're especially fond of eating snakes, and their venom doesn't have any effect on you." The fweeb frowned at the mention of Clarence and spaghetti, but sniffing the air, it recomposed itself and crept forward.
"A smart one, Warp," said the fweeb. "But it seems you have no spaghetti. And your name is certainly not Clarence. I know these things. Warp."
Fweebs were brilliant about knowing things that were not the case. It was time to move. Flake's gauntlet would not like the smell of fweeb. and would go limp the moment he tried to use it on the monster. The chief disadvantage of gauntlets is their propensity for pickiness and how easy their feelings are hurt. There was nothing left to do but run, and hope that he could stay ahead long enough to think of something. Nice talk, Flake said, and booked it. The fweeb roared, and the tremendous crash that followed let Flake know that it had sprung forward after him. It was tremendously fast, but not terribly dexterous, so Flake managed to duck out of the way just in time as it came bounding towards him on 4 legs. It snapped its jaws as it passed, overshooting him and crushing a large stone pillar with its body as it tried to swing around. The next few moments were the most hair-raising in Flake's life, including the time he fell into a pit of live nosewigs. Somehow, he managed to dodge out of the way each time the fweeb charged at him, but it was dreadfully difficult. He had to be very careful where he stepped, so that his foot, or the rest of him, did not slip into one of the numerous holes in the floor, which plunged into unknown blackness. Several times he almost slipped on a spot slickened by fweeb snot. With each pass, the fweeb seemed to be drawing closer and closer. Flake had to do something, and he quickly did, though it was not something he had intended. Allowing himself a split second to glance around wildly for another escape vector, he took a wrong step and plunged headlong into one of the larger holes in the floor. "Flub!" he yelled, barely catching himself on the very edge of the stone opening with his gauntleted hand. His feet dangled over what looked like a wide ravine or chasm. He couldn't see how far it was to the bottom, but he knew how far it was back to the top, and the fweeb. There was rope in his pack, but no time to do anything with it. He calculated his maximum fall acceleration and the probable hardness of the stone at the bottom. The numbers did not look good. Then the fweeb's enormous grin appeared over the edge of the hole. "Flub," said Flake. "Morp," said the fweeb, and stepped on his gauntlet, crushing it. Flake fell, flubbing all the way down, till his legs hit loose dirt on the steep side of the canyon. Now he was rolling end over end, through enormous spiderwebs and through devilbug swarms, and over nettles and needles and other sorts of unpleasant things. When he finally fell into a heap at the bottom of the slope, he was bruised and bashed, stung and spiked, and totally messed up. He lay motionless in the dirt for a moment. Why hadn't he thought to bring spaghetti? He knew that there might be fweebs in the Carapace. Oh, right. Because he had brought Cosimo with him, who could create spaghetti out of good memories. He doubted now that he would be able to get out of the canyon and to the prize in time, or if he could get out of the canyon at all. Cosimo carried a special potion of Supicus Chichicus just for this type of situation. It helped one bounce back from long falls or fweeb attacks remarkably well. Upsetting Cosimo had been stupid and pointless. It had almost certainly ruined his only chance at getting the prize and into Dr. Nobble's class. But Flake had also been starting to realize that he had hurt a friend, and of those he had precious few. "Flub," Flake said, groaning and hurting everywhere. "I wish Cosimo were here."
Presto.
Flake jumped at the familiar voice just behind him. Turning, there was Cosimo, inside a large iron cage just past where Flake's fall had ended. He looked a little worse for wear, though not in as bad a shape as Flake was in. However, on top of the cage sat the biggest octolin Flake had ever seen, curled up, quite content with its catch. "Cosimo," said Flake, "how did you get down here?"
Honestly, dude, I'm not quite sure. But, let's see. Oh, yeah. I was determined to beat you to the trophy, so I had just a quick bite to eat before I followed you in, said Cosimo. But the very first room I came to was some sort of weird riddle. There were these 2 doors and 2 verps guarding them. I had to ask them a question to get through, but all I could concentrate on was pepperoni. Then a chute opened up, and I fell down here. I was trying to figure out how to get back up when this thing snatched me. None of my magic seemed to work on it. He sighed deeply. Looks like you were right. You don't need me to win. You probably just defeated some giant monster back up there. Meanwhile, I can't even figure out how to pick this lock or anything.
"No, Cosimo," said Flake, slowly. With all the bruises and bumps, a difficult realization had been spreading over him. "I was wrong. I've been getting my butt handed to me ever since I split up from you. I do need you. A lot. Look, I'm really sorry about what I said to you, and for using your gruggets. I didn't realize how important they were to you, and only cared how important this contest was to me. But what do you say? Will you forgive me?
Cosimo smiled. Of course, man. We're different people. Majorly so. Got all our own things going on and stuff. So we can get on each other's nervules a lot. But in the end, staying friends is about getting along even when you poke each other in the eye, or burn the bacon, or whatnot. I forgive you, man. And I'm sorry, too, about being so casual and not respecting what was important to you as well.
Looks like we both lost what we really wanted, said Flake dismally.
Are you kidding? We can still get that prize easy. With both of us back together, we'll be unstoppable. Only, you do know how to get me out of here, right?
Flake chuckled. Sure. You still got your colander? Set it next to the octolen. Cosimo pulled his colander from his pack and set it on the ground next to one of the monster's tentacles. Immediately, the octolen started shrieking. It grasped its bulbous head in horror, and then, with a flash, poofed, clean out of the whim. Cosimo's cage turned to soapsuds.
Whoa. How'd you know about that?
Said Cosimo. Octolens are trypophobic. It's the best way to frighten them back to the Grimsphere.
Word. Well, let's get on and get that trophy.
They spent a minute or two dusting off, and downing a Supicus Chichicus each. Then they strategized for a moment. Flake reasoned that every chamber in the Carapace had an exit which was different from its entrance, including the canyon. So they searched for it. Flake looked in all the places he thought would be most likely, but found nothing. The other contestants would certainly have found the Carapace by now. Some of the more skilled ones would probably be several rooms in by now. Finally, Cosimo called out.
Hey, man, I think I found something.
He was standing next to a lemonade stand, one of several which wandered the Carapace, and Flake quickly ran to him. It was the last place Flake would have thought to look, but there, lo and behold, in the side of the stand, was a door with a ruby knob.
Whoa, dude, your eyes look like they're about to fall out, said Cosimo.
Cosimo! Flake shouted. This is it! This is the door to the last room! I can't believe it! The chances of this are infinitesimal! No Carapace cast within the last 100 years has generated a ruby door in a room like this!
Wow, that's pretty lucky then.
Yeah, it is.
Would you do the honors? Said Cosimo.
Flake grabbed the doorknob and turned it. They had entered the final room. As the door clicked behind them and disappeared, Flake took in the chamber. Ahead of them, at one end of the room, was a table surrounded by pillars. On it was the golden turtle shell trophy. Between them and the trophy, however, was one last obstacle. Its huge, scaled body wove around the room's pillars, seeming 100 feet long, and its heads, all 7 of them, had turned to look at Cosimo and Flake with terrible, cat-like green eyes. It was the Multithon. This would be the true test. The Carapace diagrams and treatises did not contain information on the final challenge, lest it become too easy. Flake gulped and the giant serpent smiled. It winked at them and started slowly winding several folds of its body towards them.
What do we do, man? It's everywhere!
I don't know, Flake panicked. I wasn't prepared for this. It wasn't on the study guides.
Well, how do we fight a big snake? There's stuff on that, right?
Large snakes are notoriously difficult to kill. Gastromancy and gauntlets do only penalize damage to them. The only thing that doesn't is if... Wait a minute. I have an idea. Do you still have that teleporter citrus?
Well, yeah, but you said that...
I know. Just trust me. Eat it and teleport to room 22B.
The snake was closing in all around them. Cosimo shoved the large purplish citrus into his mouth and bit down hard.
Room 22B,
he said, with his mouth full. Purple sparks flashed out from him, then suddenly imploded with a raspberry and a spectacular cloud of smoke. When it cleared, a very bewildered, and imperious, fweeb stood next to them. It had worked! The fweeb looked at them incredulously for a moment, then looked at the Multithon. A deep grin spread over its stupid lips. The Multithon's expression also changed, though in the opposite direction. It began slithering its body loops away as quickly as it could. But it was too late. "Morp," said the fweeb, and rolled forward, chomping at the snake. Flake could hardly believe his eyes. In only a few moments, the fweeb caught hold of the Multithon and began slurping it down like one stupendously long and girthy noodle. "Speaking of noodles," said Flake, "Cosimo, can you summon up some spaghetti?" Cosimo's face was still terribly puckered from chomping the teleporter citrus, but he nodded weakly.
"It'll have to be pasta limone, but I think I can," he said.
As soon as the last of the Multithon's heads disappeared into the fweeb's maw, Cosimo slung a tangle of yellow-sauced noodles at the victorious, and much enlarged, fweeb. It never knew what hit it. Splatting onto its hairy hide, the spaghetti liquefied the fweeb almost instantly. "Ha ha! All right, Cosimo! We've done it!" cried Flake. They both ran towards the golden turtle shell.
"I never doubted we would," said Cosimo, as Flake lifted the trophy. "Now we can finally get out of here and grab lunch. I'm awfully hungry."
The end. Thank you so much for listening to today's story from The Whim. I hope you will consider following this podcast, giving it a review, and sharing it with friends or family. I'm Jonathan Sorcy, and I'll see you at the next crossroads. Until then, farewell, and don't let the Naramites nibble.